Hello, virtual learners. I'm back with a little bit more of Lulu and the Brontosaurus. The last thing we heard is that Lulu, after finding the Brontosaurus, was excited to take him home and make him her pet. But the Brontosaurus had other ideas. We rounded out the last chapter. Usually when I'm reading a chapter book, I go back just a little bit so that I can remember exactly what happened. Now, here is the Brontosaurus, or as Lulu calls him, Mr. B, and he says, "No problem," he answered, "just a misunderstanding. Because when I said that a pet is a very good thing, I didn't mean I wanted to be your pet. I meant that you'd be a very good pet for me." Now you'll notice as I was reading these words right here, they're a little bit different than the other letters. See how they're kind of, I would call them slanted. They're kind of like a little bit turned. That means that they're italicized. That's the kind of letters, if you have print that's just turned a little bit. And that means that they're important. So when I read it, I had to say those words. I had to emphasize them. I wanted to be your pet. I meant that you'd be a great pet for me. That's how an author lets you know when someone is really saying that word and it's super important. They use italic marks. Chapter 10. Lulu's eyes were two round O's of amazement. The picture definitely matches those words. She tried to speak, but at first no words came out. Then finally she was able to say, in a squeaky, amazed kind of voice, "I don't think I heard what I think I just heard, Mr. B." "You did indeed," the Brontosaurus replied. "Well, if I did," Lulu's voice was back to being its old bossy self again. "Well, if I did, I've got some news for you. A person has a pet. An animal is a pet. A person can't be an animal's pet ever." Hey, now this is another way that the author showed the important words in a sentence. Instead of using italics, they used capitals. Capitals to me usually means that the person is shouting when they're saying something. So a person has a pet. An animal is a pet. A person can't be an animal's pet ever. Oh, those are two different ways that an author can show you that there are important words in a sentence. Capitals and italics. "And I have some news for you," the Brontosaurus said to Lulu, except that he spoke more politely than Lulu had done. "You're about to be the first person ever to be an animal's pet. Congratulations, and once again, happy birthday." He reached out a hand, or whatever you want to call it, and gently scooped Lulu off the forest floor. Then he plunked her gently down where his back met his neck. "Hold on tight, little pet," he said to Lulu. "I'll pull off some leaves from the top of the trees for your breakfast, and then I'm taking you home to live with me." "No!" yelled Lulu. "No, no, no! A billion zillion times no!" "Yes, yes, yes," the Brontosaurus replied. "I'll feed you and pat you and play with you and treat you very nicely. And all I'll expect from you is to sit and roll over and fetch a ball and do cute tricks." What did he think she was? Some kind of dog girl? I really don't know. I can't read a dinosaur's mind. Lulu thought about screeching and throwing herself on the forest floor, except that the forest floor was a long way down. She thought about squeezing the dinosaur dead, except that she needed both hands to hang on to his neck. She thought about swinging and swinging her suitcase and bonking him on the head, except that she'd left her suitcase under a tree. And she couldn't stomp on his foot because his feet were far too far from his back, where he'd plunked her. Then Lulu started to think that the only thing further from where the Brontosaurus had plunked her was her home. Her home where her mom and her dad were waiting. Her very own home where no one, not even when she was being a pain, which was most of the time, had ever expected her to sit and roll over and fetch and do cute tricks. "I want to go home to my house," Lulu told the Brontosaurus, then added in a lot less bossier voice, "Please let me go back to my house, Mr. B." Did you see it right there? Whose house does she want to go to? Yeah, and then it was in italics, so I had to kind of emphasize it. I want to go home to my house. This was maybe the first time in Lulu's entire life that she, without being told, had used the P word. Which word is it? And yet the Brontosaurus shook his head no. Once you get used to it, he kindly told Lulu, I truly believe that you'll like being a pet. Lulu imagined being a pet in the house of this Brontosaurus and never seeing her mom or dad again. She imagined eating leaves and doing cute tricks, and she said to herself that if only she could turn today into yesterday, she wouldn't go looking for a dinosaur in the forest, and she wouldn't say, "Foo on you" to her mom and dad. She was feeling especially sorry that she had ever said "foo on you" to her mom and dad. So Lulu wants to go home. She realizes that she's been pretty rude to her parents, that living with her parents who tell her no would be way better than living with a dinosaur who wants to keep her as a pet. But Mr. B is saying no, she can't go home. What do you think might happen next? Tune in next time. See you then.